This is AP News Minute. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is calling the House back into session with the planned vote to stop changes at the post office. Mail delays and cutbacks have sparked a nationwide outcry, and President Trump has said he's keeping cash from the post office to make it harder to process mail-in ballots. The virtual Democratic National Convention begins Monday as the party prepares to nominate Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris for president and vice president. Democrats will participate remotely with speakers including Senator Bernie Sanders and Ohio's former Republican Governor John Kasich. 3 police officers were in stable condition after they were shot near Austin, Texas. Authorities were surrounding a home where the suspected gunman was barricaded inside with 3 family members. A huge wildfire has burned at least 45 square miles and prompted evacuation orders in a sparsely populated area of Northern California. Powerful winds, lightning, and extreme heat are all making the firefighting conditions especially tough. This is AP News Minute. Former First Lady Michelle Obama capped off the first night of the virtual Democratic National Convention. She emotionally implored Americans to vote for Joe Biden and said that if President Trump is reelected, things can and will get worse. President Trump campaigned in Minnesota and Wisconsin, the official host state of the virtual Democratic Convention. He pushed his law and order message and called Joe Biden a puppet of left-wing extremists. Texas has now confirmed more than 10,000 coronavirus deaths. About 80% of them have occurred since June 1st, when the state was weeks into one of the country's fastest reopenings. Wildfires were reported across parts of the San Francisco Bay Area and Northern California Monday. California is also dealing with an extreme heat wave that is forecast to last until Friday or Saturday.
This is BBC World News. I'm Yalda Hakim. The headlines. The RIA news agency is reporting that the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has said a new presidential election will be held after the country adopts a new constitution. Lukashenko is facing the biggest protests of his 26 years in office. State television has joined today's national strike. EU leaders are to hold an emergency summit to prepare sanctions. And the country's exiled opposition leader has said she's ready to take over as transitional leader. The Democratic National Convention gets underway in the US today. It includes 4 days of events leading up to the main moment, crowning the presidential nominee Joe Biden and his VP pick Kamala Harris. And official estimates of coronavirus-related deaths in India have passed 50,000. The number of reported infections is now more than 2.6 million.
This is AP News Minute. The Democratic Party formally nominated Joe Biden for president Tuesday night. The former vice president is scheduled to deliver his acceptance speech Thursday night from a convention hall near his Delaware home. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretaries of State John Kerry and Colin Powell spoke during Tuesday night's virtual convention. They delivered unusually personal attacks against President Trump to portray Joe Biden as a competent moral alternative. Australia announced a deal to produce a possible coronavirus vaccine developed by a British-Swedish company. Australia's Prime Minister emphasized there's no guarantee the vaccine will work, but if it does, he says it will be distributed for free. California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a statewide emergency as about 30 wildfires burned during extreme heat. The state's power grid operator is pleading with residents to conserve power to avoid rolling blackouts.
This August 20th, 2020, we're thankful to have you watching CNN 10. We're thankful to have you watching anytime. I'm Carl Azus, and the first story we're explaining today is a controversy concerning mail-in voting in America. Here's a down-the-middle look at what's going on. Every U.S. state has some way for Americans to vote without actually appearing at a polling location. Because of concerns over the spread of coronavirus, interest has exploded in mail-in voting. CNN 10 contributor Kelly Mena has info on how exactly that works. Kelly.
Thanks, Carl. Now let's take a look at what mail-in or absentee voting means. Traditionally, the majority of voters show up in person to cast their ballots for primary and general elections. Vote by mail is when voters opt out of showing up in person to then cast their ballot through the mail. This process, depending on the state, usually starts when a voter requests their ballot through the mail. Then, election officials send the official ballot to the voter, who fills it out and sends it back to be counted. At least 34 states now allow voters to request an absentee ballot without the need of an excuse. Currently, 7 states require an excuse to vote by mail, places like New York and Texas, though that may change. Other places, like California and Nevada, have decided to send a ballot to every registered voter, even those who didn't apply for the mail option. Carl, the question now remains, with the pandemic creating a once-in-a-lifetime challenge for elections, what impact will this have on the general election in the fall?
Thanks, Kelly. That question is at the root of a blooming controversy. The Trump administration is planning to sue Nevada and at least one other state for their plans to mail a ballot to every voter. Many Republicans and critics of mail-in voting say it increases the risk of fraud, in part because election officials, like poll workers, won't be there in person to make sure the votes are cast freely and fairly. Many Democrats and supporters of mail-in voting say it's already been shown to work in several states and that it opens up the opportunity to vote to more people. A number of experts on this issue say it's not clear if mail-in voting benefits one party over the other, that there's no guarantee that either Democrats or Republicans would have an advantage with mail-in ballots. But an American infectious disease specialist says as long as people follow social distancing guidelines, there's no reason why they can't vote in person this fall. So how all this plays out remains to be seen.
This is AP News Minute. California Senator Kamala Harris formally became the Democratic Party's vice presidential nominee Wednesday night. She addressed the virtual Democratic convention from Wilmington, Delaware, speaking about the nation's long struggle for racial justice and condemning President Trump's leadership. Former presidential nominee Hillary Clinton also spoke at the Democratic convention, saying she wished Donald Trump were a better president. Former President Barack Obama said Trump won't grow into the job of president, quote, because he can't. President Trump says the U.S. wants all United Nations sanctions placed back on Iran. He said Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will go to the UN Thursday to accuse Iran of significant non-compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal. About 24 major wildfires are burning throughout Northern California, threatening thousands of homes. Crews are also dealing with numerous small fires. Thousands of people are under evacuation orders. This is AP News Minute. Joe Biden accepted the Democratic presidential nomination and spoke to the nation from Wilmington, Delaware. The former vice president did not name President Trump, but said character, compassion, decency, science, and democracy are all on the ballot. Former presidential candidates like Andrew Yang, Cory Booker, and Pete Buttigieg also spoke to the virtual Democratic convention Thursday night. Former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg asked why the country would rehire an employee or co-worker like President Trump. At least 5 deaths are reported in connection with the numerous wildfires tearing through California. Dozens of fires are burning in the San Francisco Bay Area and central California. Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny remains hospitalized Friday, with Russian doctors refusing to authorize his transfer to Germany. Navalny, one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's fiercest critics, is reported to be in a coma after a suspected poisoning.
You're watching BBC World News. I'm David Eads, and these are the headlines. A deputy head doctor says no traces of poison have been found in the Russian opposition activist Alexei Navalny. His family's furious that doctors say he's too ill to be moved to Germany from Siberia for treatment. Joe Biden has laid out a vision for his presidency as he accepted the Democratic nomination to challenge Donald Trump in November's election. He accused his rival of unleashing anger, fear and division on the country. The Belarus opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has called on her supporters to step up their strikes at factories across the country to try to force new presidential elections. And volunteers in Mauritius say the government is blocking efforts to help clean up a recent oil spill. The authorities say the area has been restricted for health reasons.